Grandma Story leaned forward, her gaze fixed on the two children. She asked, "Have you ever been scared to try something important?" Before they could answer, the wooden chest beside her began to creak. A lid groaned open, and a soft golden glow spilled across the floorboards. Zip! The tiny sprite darted through the air, leaving trails of light that flickered like dying embers. Maya and Leo turned toward the center of the room where the story door shimmered. It was not a door of wood or metal, but a swirling vortex of light that pulsed in time with their own heartbeats. Leo hesitated, his weight shifting from one foot to the other. Maya reached out, her hand finding his, and pulled him toward the light. The air grew cold, then warm, then smelled of ozone and mountain air. They stepped forward. The cottage vanished. The floor beneath their feet dissolved into a mist, and they tumbled through the light, landing hard on solid stone. They were no longer in the room. The world had shifted, and the silence here was heavy, vast, and waiting. The ground was cold, biting through the soles of their shoes. They stood at the base of the mountain of maybe, where the earth turned into jagged, vertical stone. Clouds churned around the summit, hiding the peak in a grey, swirling shroud. Leo looked up. The incline was steep, disappearing into the mist. He took 2 steps backward, his breath catching in his throat. "It is too high," he said, his voice barely audible against the rising wind. "We cannot reach that." He turned to leave, his feet scraping against the rock. Suddenly, a sharp gust of air swept down from the heights, whipping dust into a spiral. A figure landed firmly on the ledge before them. It was Captain Coast. He did not speak at first, but held up a metallic object that caught the dim light. The device hummed, a soft, rhythmic pulse emanating from its center. "One brave step at a time," Captain Coast declared, pointing his finger toward the shrouded summit. The wind died down as he spoke, leaving a heavy silence in its wake. He gestured toward the path ahead. Leo looked at the compass, then back at the mountain, his shoulders dropping from their rigid, defensive posture. The climb was still there, but the path was now marked. They began the ascent. The stone was slick, and every handhold felt like a gamble against gravity. As they climbed higher, the wind stopped whistling and began to speak. It did not use words, but the sound mimicked the rhythm of human voices. "Maybe you will fail," the wind hissed against the rock face. "Maybe you are not strong enough." Leo ignored the first few pulses, but the repetition clawed at his focus. He reached for a granite outcropping, but his fingers slipped on a patch of ice. He scrambled, his chest slamming against the ledge. He pushed himself up, but his boots skidded, sending a shower of loose pebbles into the abyss below. He froze. The sound of the rocks hitting the bottom never came. He looked down. The path they had climbed was gone, swallowed by a thick, churning fog. The sheer drop was a vacuum, pulling at his senses. His legs began to shake. A rhythmic, uncontrollable vibration that traveled from his heels into his core. He pressed his palms against the freezing stone, his knuckles turning white. He could not move forward, and he certainly could not go back. He was trapped on a shelf of stone, no wider than a doorway, with the mountain mocking his every breath. Maya moved back along the narrow shelf, her boots finding purchase where his had failed. She reached out and grabbed his hand. Her grip was firm, grounding him against the swirling mist. Below, Captain Coast held the compass high. The device emitted a steady, rhythmic chime that cut through the wind. "Fear speaks in maybes," he shouted. "But courage is choosing to move." Leo squeezed Maya's fingers. He exhaled a long, shaky breath and forced his eyes to lock onto the ledge above. He lifted his right foot, muscles straining, and planted it firmly on the higher stone. The silence that followed was absolute. He pulled his body weight up, then repeated the motion. As he stepped, the compass began to glow with a blinding, golden intensity, illuminating a path that carved through the clouds. Zip darted around him, leaving streaks of light that banished the grey shadows. They scrambled over the final boulders, gasping for air as the summit plateaued beneath their feet. In the center, the crystal of courage pulsed. Leo reached out, his trembling fingers making contact with the smooth, cold surface. A shockwave of golden light erupted, washing over the entire mountain and turning the dark sky into a brilliant, triumphant amber. The light flared once more, swallowing the summit and the clouds. The sensation of falling vanished, replaced by the solid, familiar floorboards of the cottage. The story door faded into a simple frame, its swirling energy dissipating into the air. Leo stood in the center of the room, his hands hanging loose at his sides. He looked down at his palms. They were steady, the tremors gone. Maya stood beside him, her breathing slow and rhythmic. Zip darted through the air, slowing down until he hovered near the story chest, his sparkles dimming to a soft, warm glow. Grandma Story leaned forward from her chair, her eyes tracking the children with quiet recognition. She spoke, her voice steady and clear. "You were afraid the whole time, yet you kept moving. That is true courage." Leo looked at the story chest, then back to the window where the light of the day seemed brighter than before. He understood now. The mountain had not changed, but he had. Courage was not the absence of the shaking heart, but the decision to plant one foot forward anyway. Zip chirped a final soft note. The room felt quiet, filled with the weight of the new knowledge. The final words shimmered in the air. Courage is taking one small step forward, even when you feel afraid.